Well, good afternoon. I am Attorney Dominic Fariello. I don't know if any of you have heard of me before. You might know me as Ask the Dom from 102.5 The Bone. Are you familiar with the radio station? Bubba's on in the morning. The Mike Calta show now is on in the afternoon, which is, of course, formerly known as the Cowhead Show. I've been on radio and TV for about 8 years. I used to do the morning show on 98 Rock, and now I do the afternoon show on 102.5. And what I have is a call-in show, and then I answer legal questions all the time for free. And folks call in with a variety of stuff, and if you've ever listened to the show, you would understand it's crazy. They gave me now my own show, which is every Sunday from 9 to 11. So if you are excited after my presentation today, and you want to tune in to the show tomorrow, I'll be on that station from 9 to 11. And again, they gave me 2 hours. So what I do is I just answer questions. A little background, so you know me. I do, obviously, criminal defense. Oh, I didn't even see this here. That's pretty good. I also do personal injury, traffic, and family law. I've been a lawyer now 12 years, licensed in 2002, the state of Florida, 2003, the Middle District for the federal courts here in the Middle District of Florida, and that was in 2003. I used to be an associate professor right across the street at HCC from 04 to 06, so I kind of back in the neighborhood, so to speak. So I've been around a lot of crime. The major stuff that I do, I've done everything from parking tickets to murder. The majority of what I do, for whatever reason, is the 3 Ds. Drugs, DUIs, and domestic violence. Those tend to be the more prevalent area of the criminal realm that I do. But the majority of my practice, a lot of people don't know, is personal injury and auto accidents. When they asked me to speak today, I said, well, I can quote you law and statutes, but we really don't know what the hell's going to happen because it hasn't happened yet. So I said, well, gee whiz, I don't want to make this stuff up. So I want to figure out, well, what can I tell you guys, as I assume all of you in here, by a show of hands, do you all want to be growers for the most part, or owners and then have somebody else grow? One of those two things. Is that the majority of everybody here for the most part? I just want to know the audience that I'm talking to. Are the majority of you guys going to do it in Hillsborough County? All right. How about Pasco or Pinellas? Hernando? Okay, here's the point. When you get up in the morning and you enter in this venture, and we assume it's going to pass in November, what's going to cross in your mind is, am I going to be arrested today? So all the statutes and all the stuff I can tell you, and I got the fancy suit, my daughter picked out this pink tie. Are you going to be arrested? And so now we have to figure out what the answer to that question is. The first step is you need to determine, at some point in time, the county that you're going to be your base of operation. Why is that important? Because each county is different in the sense of their attitude, style, and the folks in the county. For example, in my humble opinion, dealing with state attorneys from across the state of Florida, because I go to many different counties, I know that Hillsborough is, for the most part, rather liberal in certain prosecutions of certain type cases. However, I know that Pasco and Pinellas tend to lean more conservatively. It's a little more difficult and takes longer, for example, on a DUI case, to process a DUI charge in Pasco or Pinellas. They tend to be a little faster in Hillsborough. Now, that doesn't mean that one county is better than the other. It doesn't mean that one state attorney is doing it right and the other one's doing it wrong. It's you have to know the folks. You have to know the style of what's going on in the county. So first thing I would write down is the county you want to be in. I would hire a lawyer that does criminal defense in that county. And it may not be me. Now, Sean, by the way, is more of the business side, the tax end of it, the banking side. Now, you can probably hire him for everything. But for the criminal stuff, my recommendation is you get someone who knows the local sheriff, the police, who knows the drug crime units of the law enforcement agency, that's familiar with the courts, the judges, that knows the state attorneys, the prosecutors, etc. That's step one. Because a lot of times when you're dealing with cases of first impression, which is what all of you will be once they figure out what the law is going to become, and people start getting prosecuted, we're going to have to figure out how to deal with it. So if you have somebody that knows that particular county and system, you're already a leg up. So that would be my first recommendation for you. The second recommendation I would say is it starts with yourself and the folks that you surround yourself immediately. I learned even as a lawyer that your staff can make or break you. And what I mean by that is if I have a good paralegal, that is equivalent to maybe 2 attorneys, if they know what they're doing. So in your business, if you're going to have an office manager, or if you're going to have a master grower, or you're going to have staff to help with the distribution, you're going to want to make sure that you do a very thorough background check, which means, number 2, you're going to want to hire an investigating firm, a private investigator. You got to do a thorough background check on all of your employees. And you're going to have that documented because if they come knocking, you're going to say, hey, I did a thorough background check, and nobody, to my understanding, based on the professionals that I hired, has any crimes pending or prior convictions or prior felonies. Because you can have felonies but not be convicted. There's a distinction between being a convicted felon and being a felon with a conviction charge or adjudication. So if you want some statute numbers, I can give you some of this stuff here. And this is good also for yourselves because I don't know if some of your backgrounds, if you had any prior issues and then now you want to open up this business, you're going to have to go through this as well. And if I can see, getting old. Let's see here. You can go to www.fdle.state.fl.us. And this website, again, that's www.fdle, Florida Department of Law Enforcement, .state.florida.us. There contains a link there. It says criminal history records. It's on the left side of the home page. And then there's a general public access for a $24 fee. I think they do a research and review history. The national checks, though, must be run through the FBI. And then what happens is you can determine if you need to have a sealment or expungement, which is something that might be relevant for you guys here. That falls under Florida statutes 943.0585 for an expungement, and then 943.059, and that's for a sealing. But you can never have been convicted or adjudicated for any crime in any state ever, so that would make a difference. So if you wanted to contact a lawyer to determine whether or not there's going to be a problem with a sealment or expungement, that's how you start with yourself and then the folks that you surround. So what we figured out now is if you wake up in the morning and you know, okay, I've got a local attorney, I understand the county that I'm in, I've done a thorough background check, not only on myself, but on the staff that I'm surrounding, you're starting now to minimize problems because you're being thorough. So if law enforcement come in and they say, well, you got this problem, this problem, this problem, well, no, officer or deputy, I've already done this, this, and this pursuant to my lawyer, and it all's checked out, here you go. So, it was funny, I had Chief Castor on the show a few weeks ago, who is the chief of police, very, very nice lady. She went to the same high school I did, just at a different time. And I asked her about the prospect of this coming up, the medical marijuana. And I don't want to say the chief dodged the question because she really was straight up in answering a lot of things. But she did focus on more of the, I guess the collateral issues law enforcement deals with is kind of the stigma we all have to overcome. Well, if you have the medical marijuana, is that now going to cause an increase in crime or accidents and things alike? So I think that when you have a lawyer and when you go out there and start to talk to people, you're going to have to not get frustrated with that. Because I think when you talk to folks on the other side, that seems to be the biggest thing coming out of, well, a lot of these local sheriffs. And it's interesting because I've said on my show and on the Mike Calta show, I am for medical marijuana. I personally think that if you're sick and there's something that you can take to make you feel better, and it becomes legal, well, life's too damn short for you to be in pain. The concern that I have, though, on the other side of the coin, as a DUI attorney, and as I've dealt with cases where I've seen vehicular manslaughter related to drugs, and not just alcohol, but drugs. And I've also been on the other end representing families that have lost a loved one in personal injury. So I understand the concern, but at the other side, I understand the need. So what you have now is you have to have a balance. And the way to have a balance is to have somebody that represents your interests, and that you have to know how to handle people in the county in which you're going to operate. That to me is key, because we don't know what the law is going to be. But if you know the folks that are going to be enforcing the law, you're already winning the game. Does that make sense? Okay. Any questions? I mean, I can continue to go on, but I want to kind of, if you guys got any questions about that, anything? I mean, I'm here now. You don't have to call the show. Ask the Dom. Now, you can go to my website, which is askthedom.com. I do have some clients that are in similar positions that are kind of, they want to pre-hire me, and I say, well, I don't know what, you don't have to pay me anything up front because I really don't know what to tell you, other than what I'm telling you nice folks today is just be proactive, do your research, hire people that are going to educate themselves with the process. We're all going to learn as we go. So I love to come up here and tell you, you're going to leave here, oh, Dominic gave us the answer today. I can't do that. But I can at least help guide you a little bit in the right direction, if that makes any sense. Okay? So I know that, Sean, you touched on the 8 things. That's, I'm going to trip myself. I'm going to fall off the stage. I got $5 says I'm going to come down. Those 8 things, if you stay under the radar, that's all that's talking about. My father used to tell me, if you keep it small, you keep it all. So if you get too big and you start moving stuff from one state to the next, that's a no-no. I wouldn't do that. If you start to have a lot of different facilities in the county or in multiple counties in the state, then you're going to start having bigger problems. More staff, more overhead, more money, and of course, more what? Attention to your particular business. When I represent attorneys that get in trouble with the Florida bar, I have a philosophy where I like to contact the bar quite often, and interact with them as often as I can. I don't fear my regulatory authority. In fact, not many attorneys would do this, but there's been occasions where I have self-reported myself to the Florida bar. And what that means is I'm not quite sure if my conduct, if I do this or do that or do this with a particular case or something ethically, is going to be ethical. So I'll contact them. And sometimes it's in written form, and then sometimes as an attorney you can call and you can just get a little case number or a claim number and you can speak to a lawyer there. So I kind of embrace authority in the sense, and I'm going to recommend that to you. So I don't know what point we're at now, 3, 4, 5 maybe. So you need to embrace whatever the regulatory authority is going to be, whether it's Department of Agriculture or where it's going to be locally, whoever is going to be in charge of this thing. You need to embrace them. And I would communicate with them often. Okay, I understand this is the statute. I understand this is the local ordinance. I understand this is the regulation. And I just want to make sure I'm in compliance. Oh, by the way, introduce myself. Hello. And this is my attorney. It's Dom or Sean or whoever. If you do that, you're going to have the advantage because you are not causing problems, 1. And 2, they know about you, and they know you're doing your best effort to be compliant. And that's where a lot of my clients get damage control when they hire my office. It's don't dig a deeper hole. Make sure you back out, or sometimes if you're too far, you just got to go through, but go through with the proper legal representation. Does that make sense? Okay. I think there's questions. I can't see. Oh, there you go. Go ahead. Sorry.
I have a question.
I just kept going. I don't know.
If we do have to get a seal or expunge, will that be good enough to allow the state to continue your application fee processing?
Excellent question. Here's the problem with sealments and expungements. I don't want to say they're a pain in the ass, but they are a pain in the ass. And the reason is it takes about 9 months to a year to go through the process. So as you sit here now, we're in April. We have legislation that may pass in November. So if you are one of the individuals in the room that might have something in your background that is a problem, I would start now.
And are we going to get the discount that you would normally offer on the radio?
Of course, yes, yes, of course. Of course. Just say I was there at the conference, and boy, you look great in that tie, and then I'll take care of you. But to answer your question a little more seriously, it takes 9 to a year is what I tell people. Once that process is resolved, then it's fair game. I don't know, like some of the other speakers said, if that's going to be enough for them. And it's frustrating for me to tell you that. I hate to tell people I don't know, but I do tell people that on the radio sometimes, because if I don't know, I don't want to tell you something I don't know, and then you act on it, and then what happens? If you're wrong, you're to come back and yell at me or the station. So I don't want to tell you I don't know, but the first part I've told you to start now. And the second part is, well, we'll find out. So if you hire a lawyer and you're cleared up your record or whatever the case may be, or let's say the record of your employees, depending on how big your operation is going to be, then we, the lawyers, can communicate with the regulatory authority and say, okay, this is what we got. Is that going to be a problem? So forth, and so on and so forth. Yes, any more questions?
I have, I hope, an easy question for you. At what point?
Allegedly, when they say that.
Right.
Allegedly an easy question. I don't want any easy questions, yeah.
So at what point, we don't know the rules. We don't know the legislation that will be enacted. We are all leaning forward in the foxhole trying to get an idea and a beat on that target. At what point should we put a face in front of our local representation, our lawyer, our representatives, our senators, and talk to them about whether or not they're going to be friendly communities or whether or not there's areas that they'll be supportive of this industry in their constituencies?
Yeah, it's funny. I know John Morgan's doing a wonderful job with his efforts just to get this initiative on the ballot. But I don't think John or his office does the criminal aspect of it. I think his efforts predominantly are, hey, let's at least get this passed so there's medical authorization, for this type of disbursement. So I don't know if you really. That's an excellent question, because you'd have to really isolate which senators, which state senators, for example, which the state representatives. You'd have to talk individually to each mayor, on the city. Because here's the thing: if you're going to be inside the city limits, you're going to have to deal with city ordinances. But that doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be in the city of Tampa. You could still be in Hillsborough County. And you have that same problem that goes across the state. We doing a good on time? Am I going long? Am I all right?
No, I think we're
okay.
good. Do we have any more questions?
Any other? Did that answer your question for the most? I mean, it's now. I mean, if you can get somebody to talk to you, I mean, look, I'm trying to book folks to come on the show. Right. And I think what you're going to find, this is my prediction, is it's going to be a very hot, steamy summer. Because what's going to happen is you're going to start to gear up for that elections coming. And then what you're going to do is you start seeing the commercials and the different sponsors and people for it or against it. So I think that you're going to have to start gearing up for the summer. And it starts at your level as far as entrepreneurs, business folks. And then, to the extent that, what I try to do, because I have my own radio show, and what I do with the station is I try to get people to come in, but it's tough to get folks to answer the question straight on. I don't know if you're up for re-election, they may not want to say anything about it. But then again, if you're at 82%, maybe they're all for it. I don't know.
I have a question. There's several local municipalities and counties that have been discouraging, if you will, dispensaries and grows by placing moratoriums on those applications. Mm-hmm. Some of the areas have put on 2-year moratoriums. Do you think that ultimately the local governments could prevail and prevent dispensaries or cultivation operations open?
The answer is yes and no. They did that with the PIP legislation. When they changed PIP laws, I went down and I spoke to city council. It's funny, they give you 2 minutes. And I said, what are you guys, crazy? I'm a lawyer. You're going to give me 2 minutes? I go, Mr. Fariello, you now have 1 minute and 45 seconds. So they did that in a sense where they were trying to micromanage the facilities, the clinics, whether or not they were medically owned, not private owned. So, for example, when doctors own medical clinics versus if you, not a doctor, wanted to own a medical clinic. And then the debate came into, well, you're going to have this 14 days, or was it going to be 30 days? Are they going to pay for acupuncture? Are they going to pay for massage therapy? So there is some precedent, at least in that area, in my opinion, where you have a moratorium, if you will, and they had to pay, I can't remember what it was, each clinic had to pay some type of fee, and then they had to deal with inspections, and it was I don't want to say it was a moneymaker, but it was, some revenues came in from that. So I think the answer to your question is yes and no, and there was a bit of a history of that with what we went on with the PIP. PIP is personal injury protection, for those of you who didn't know. Okay.
We got one more over here.
Allegedly one more. Am I doing good? Am I helping you guys out? Absolutely. No, throw something at me if you don't like it. Okay. Yes.
Hi. My question, which we really haven't, I don't know that many people have given much thought to this, but with the use of the Second Amendment and your right to exercise use of medical marijuana, when you go to purchase a firearm, there's a specific question that you have to answer on, I think it's the 4456 or something like that. And it says basically, or actually it says verbatim, do you use marijuana or any other drug? Now, if you were going to be a medical marijuana user or a medical marijuana business owner, I would imagine that that could become a federal issue for you because, A, if you lie on that form, you're now a felon, and B, if you do it, you've run afoul of the federal government. And I would imagine that in the growing use of databases, it won't be inordinately difficult for them to cross-reference the two.
Well, I know exactly what you're talking about. I had to get my concealed weapons permit renewed, which mine had expired, and I had paid attention. So I made a show out of it to make awareness. So I went down there. It was on the computer. I did it, and you had to. Yeah, exactly. You had to say, no, I don't engage in this type. I think what's going to happen is when the law changes, what should happen is that question should have a caveat if you're engaged in the lawful business practice. But the problem is, why would the federal government do that if it's illegal under the feds? However, the Department of Agriculture is the department that will issue a concealed weapons permit in this example. So now you say, well, if it's the state of Florida and it's legal here, boom, now you've got one hell of a constitutional issue. I agree with you, but at the same time, you'd have to find out the state's position, and I don't think the state knows. I don't think the federal government knows. So I would stay with this. You got a right to carry a firearm by a constitutional amendment. If you have a concealed weapons permit, I would recommend that you have a concealed weapons permit because that provides you more protection if you want to protect yourself in this industry. Like the gentleman said before me with the safe, I've seen it firsthand. There was a clinic that used to be next to my old office on Kennedy, and they were doing physical therapies, and then they had a doctor that came in and they started giving out prescriptions. And that was unbelievable, the amount of traffic flow that came in, which ultimately was, dealing with prescription drugs. And the flow of people, I said, well, I gotta move to Hyde Park, and then I moved out of there. So I said, people coming around my office, and it was right on Kennedy. I mean, there was a line of people. I'll go out to look at the sky, and there'd be all these people here. So there is an issue about security, how that relates now to carrying weapons. And then the problem now is if you have, say, cannabis in your system, and now you have in the state of Florida 10-20 life, the firing of a firearm. And then if you have, if you're under the influence, which is the problem now with DUIs. are you under the influence if marijuana is in your system? Marijuana stays in your system how long? Approximately what, 30 days? Depending on you, right? So now what you're going to have, you get people pulled over, 0.000, oh, we're not drunk. Well, now we're going to go fishing. Well, like a urine sample, we want a blood sample, A, B, C, D. Now it's going to come into all these attorneys that do DUIs are going to start hiring toxicologists to fight that. The amount or the quantity, you have to quantify the amount, does not rise to the level of being impaired or your normal faculties impaired to operate a motor vehicle. Now what the hell that means is that's going to be another fun thing. Yes?
In Washington State, we have per se laws. So basically, once you are pulled over and blood is drawn from your body and there's tested positive, you're automatically guilty. You're not allowed to even challenge that in court. Meaning that if the test is improperly done by if the test that they take from your blood is done improperly, you're still considered convicted. Pro se law is something that's recently that came into Washington State, and other states are starting to look at that now too. It's a serious thing because lawyers are unable to do anything. You're just automatically guilty.
The problem that you have in Florida is there's a distinction here between medical blood and legal blood. Not to say that you would not have a pro se, like they have negligence pro se, which, what your concept is in Washington State is equivalent to what they call strict liability here in the state of Florida. Excellent point. Phenomenally excellent point. But the law, as right now, you have defenses in the state of Florida because there's a distinction in blood draws, and there's certain elements as far as was there a crash involved, was there actually a refusal if a breath was denied or if a urine was denied, and then you kind of get into more of the chaotic stuff, which is where I have fun in motions to suppress or C4 motions, and then that's when then it's showtime. So, did I answer your question? You're okay there? Good. And that's fine. I really can't be wrong, I could help guide you guys in the right direction. Yeah, Dominic was pretty good, 6 months ago, or maybe 6 months ago. No, Dominic didn't know what the hell he was talking about. But the good news is I tell you guys straight what I know or what I don't know. At least now, if you follow those advice, those 4 or 5 principles I gave you, so when you wake up in the morning, the first thing is, hey, am I going to be arrested today? And they make that say, hey, more likely than not, I'm not going to be arrested today, then I think we've had a successful conference today. Okay? All right. Thank you, guys. Sorry I went long. I don't know what time it is. Somebody stole my watch. I have no idea what time it is.